This week on Jerusalem Dateline, Israel and the Palestinian Authority hold highest-level meeting in more than 10 years. Where will it lead? And with the Afghanistan pullout complete, where does it leave those left behind, and what impact will it have on Israel and the Middle East? Plus, letters to God placed in the Western Wall. All this and more this week on Jerusalem Dateline. Hello and welcome to this first edition of our 11th season of Jerusalem Dateline. I'm Julie Stahl, filling in for Chris Mitchell. The surprise move by the Israeli government to reach out to the Palestinian Authority is getting mixed reviews. And did Prime Minister Naftali Bennett get pressure from the White House to offer economic help? CBN Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell takes a look at the reasons behind it.
In what some would call an about-face, Israel is offering economic assistance to the Palestinian Authority and easing its blockade of the Gaza Strip. While it could indicate an Israeli and U.S. policy change toward Palestinians, it's also an attempt to weaken Hamas.
Our declared goal is to do whatever is possible to improve the life of Palestinians in terms of the economy, security, also self-governance, and also public health and fighting the pandemic. And Israel has approved a series of measures to improve the economic situation.
The measures include a $150 million loan, as well as authorizing work permits for an additional 15,000 Palestinians to work inside Israel. The move follows a surprise meeting between Defense Minister Benny Gantz and PA Chairman Mahmoud Abbas, the highest level meeting between the sides in more than 10 years. Former Israeli ambassador to the UN, Danny Danon, says while this coordination is necessary, he believes the high-profile meeting was out of line.
We have to remember that President Abbas still supports terrorism. They pay salaries to convicted terrorists, and I don't think he deserves the respect he got from Minister Gantz.
Danon says there may have been pressure from Washington since the meeting happened shortly after Bennett's meeting with President Biden.
And I'm sure this issue was also brought up in the discussions between President Biden and Prime Minister Bennett.
Foreign Minister Yair Lapid confirmed this move doesn't mean negotiations are resuming. Still, Lapid says Israel is not interested in weakening the PA.
I am a devoted believer in the two-state solution. I think this is the right solution. But we'll have to admit to the fact this is not feasible in the current situation.
Reserve Major General Eitan Dan-Goat is former coordinator of government activities in the territories. He believes the meeting highlights the importance of the West Bank to Israel and is meant to strengthen Abbas against Hamas.
Hamas used the last escalation on May as the top of the interest around the Palestinian issue. They took the leadership and they were put themselves as those who are, let's say, carrying and serving the Palestinian people.
While the PA rules Palestinian areas in the West Bank, Hamas is gaining power there. Hamas, which is dedicated to Israel's destruction, has ruled Gaza since 2007, when it seized control from a PA faction.
We are not interested in going back to Gaza. We are not interested in choking Gaza in sieges. We just want to make sure nobody's firing rockets and missiles on us. And if Hamas will guarantee peace and quiet, they can guarantee also the functioning economy and humanitarian aid to the people of Gaza.
Israel is also opening the Kerem Shalom crossing from Israel into Gaza to all equipment and goods, increasing the number of merchants allowed into Israel and expanding the fishing zone off Gaza.
Several days after the meeting between PA President Abbas and Israeli Defense Minister Gantz, and less than a week after Israeli Prime Minister Bennett returned from his meeting with President Biden, Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi hosted a rare summit for Jordan's King Abdullah II and Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas. The talks were aimed at reviving the Middle East peace process between Israel and the Palestinians and strengthening the ceasefire that halted the Israel-Hamas war in May. According to a statement from el-Sisi's office, the three discussed the two-state solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. They all agreed the Palestinians have a right to a Palestinian state with the eastern part of Jerusalem as its capital. Israel opposes dividing Jerusalem and has made it clear that the economic assistance it's giving to the Palestinian Authority does not signal a return to negotiations. The U.S. stuck to its August 31st deadline and pulled its troops out of Afghanistan on time. CBN's George Thomas takes a look at how things wrapped up and what those left behind are facing.
19 years, 10 months, and 23 days after the U.S. mission in Afghanistan began, Major General Chris Donahue, commander of the 82nd Airborne Division, was the last American soldier to leave Afghan soil shortly before midnight in Kabul on Monday.
Tonight's withdrawal signifies both the end of the military component of the evacuation, but also the end of the nearly 20-year mission that began in Afghanistan shortly after September 11, 2001.
A mission that was not cheap.
The cost was 2,461 U.S. service members and civilians killed, and more than 20,000 who were injured.
By early Tuesday morning, the Taliban's Islamic fighters, along with their top leaders, were strolling the tarmac of Kabul's airport in full control and declaring that the myth of American invincibility had been busted in Afghanistan.
We have achieved our independence, and we were able to force the Americans to leave after 20 years of jihad and sacrifice.
Over 18 days, the U.S. military airlifted about 123,000 civilians from the airport, including 6,000 Americans, in the largest non-combatant evacuation in U.S. Army history. Still, U.S. citizens who wanted to get out are still trapped inside, along with thousands of Afghan partners.
There are still a small number of Americans, under 200 and likely closer to 100, who remain in Afghanistan and want to leave.
But just 2 weeks ago, the president promised to stay until every American, including Afghan allies and their families, were out.
If there's American citizens left, we're going to stay till we get them all out.
Now, with U.S. forces out, the question is, will Afghanistan become a terrorist safe haven again? The Taliban says it will not allow the country to be a launching pad for terror attacks, but many experts believe their takeover is a boost for terror groups like Al-Qaeda and ISIS.
And unfortunately, going to see a massive boost in terror recruitment and radicalization based on the belief that jihadists in Afghanistan first defeated the Soviet Union, and now they defeated the United States.
And the ramifications are already reverberating, especially for Afghanistan's religious minority groups. At a safe house in Kabul, Jayuddin, not his real name, has been in hiding along with 12 other Afghans since the Taliban seized control of the city nearly 3 weeks ago.
One of us is always awake during the night, always walking around and praying. So if the Taliban should come and knock on our door, we should alert everyone.
In an exclusive interview with CBN News, Jayuddin and the others, who are part of Afghanistan's very small Christian community, told us they have no passports, no U.S. government-issued exit papers, and right now see their hopes of escape diminish.
We had many plans for preaching the gospel with other brothers and sisters, but then the Taliban took control so quickly. It happened so fast.
And now they've been marked by the Taliban.
Every day I receive a phone call from a private number, and the person warns me that if he sees me again, he will behead me.
While Jayuddin says he's not afraid of dying, he's asking the world to pray for his country.
We are praying for each other that the Lord would put his angels around our house for our protection and safety.
Coming up, what are the possible ramifications of the Afghanistan pullout for Israel and the Middle East?
Now, for a limited time, you can get 5 of CBN's critically acclaimed documentaries. Experience the rebirth of the modern state of Israel.
The historic bonds between the Jewish people and the land of Israel cannot be broken.
Relive the battle for Jerusalem in the Six-Day War.
Jerusalem is yours, forever.
Discover how Israeli volunteers are changing the world.
When people need us, we volunteer and we come and help.
Explore the world of Israeli technological innovation.
We're people of dreams. God gives us dreams. And that's really the roots, I think, of much of our innovation.
And understand the biggest land dispute in history.
Many Palestinian Arabs claim that the Jews stole Arab land. But is that the real story?
This exclusive Israel DVD collection can be yours for a gift of $29.99 or more. Call now or go online to get your Israel DVD bundle, which includes streaming access. Download the CBN News app, 24/7 news from a Christian perspective at home or on the road. One place for all of your news. Breaking news alerts. Set daily prayer goals and pray for news stories. Read the most important news and watch CBN News Channel live. CBN News, because truth matters. Go to cbnnewsapp.com to get the app today. As we enter the Jewish New Year, there's no better time to explore the holidays of Israel. In CBN's free guide, Israel's Major Holidays, you'll discover why these special occasions are so central to Jewish life and culture. You'll even learn about the biblical feasts and festivals that Jesus observed throughout his life. Get your free copy. Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to cbn.com/Israel Holidays.
Israeli Prime Minister Bennett is calling his meeting with President Biden a success. The meeting took place under the shadow of the U.S. pullout from Afghanistan and terror attacks there. Here's what Bennett and Biden had to say about Israel's greatest threat, Iran. Before boarding his flight home, Bennett described the time with President Biden as a direct and personal connection based on trust.
We achieved all of the objectives for the trip, and even beyond that. We agreed with the Americans on a joint strategic effort to halt the Iranian nuclear race. We have taken a significant step in equipping and building Israeli power.
While the two leaders differ in approach, they agree Iran must never get a nuclear weapon.
We're putting diplomacy first and seeing where that takes us. But if diplomacy fails, we're ready to turn to other options.
These very days illustrate what the world would look like if a radical Islamic regime acquired a nuclear weapon. That marriage would be a nuclear nightmare for the entire world. Iran is the world's #1 exporter of terror, instability, and human rights violations.
Bennett highlighted Israel's strategy.
First goal is to stop Iran on its regional aggression and start rolling him back into the box. And the second is to permanently keep Iran away from ever being able to break out a nuclear weapon.
CBN's Gary Lane spoke with Israel's former ambassador to the UN, Danny Danon, about how the U.S. pullout from Afghanistan is changing the dynamics in the region, strengthening radicals in Lebanon, Gaza, and Iran.
Ambassador Danon, it's good to talk with you again. So, an emboldened Taliban now in control in Afghanistan. What does that mean for Israel?
For us, when the U.S. is strong, Israel is strong. And when the perception is that the U.S. is getting weaker, we are weaker. Those pictures that we saw coming from Kabul are actually giving more strength to the radicals in Lebanon, to the radicals in Gaza, and to the radicals in Tehran. And I think the question is whether the new administration will now continue to negotiate with Tehran and will try to re-enter the agreement with Iran all over again.
And many other Islamic terrorist groups see that the most powerful military in the world was defeated and embarrassed by the enemy they fought against for 20 years. The Taliban's now in control. So how about the terrorist group on Israel's northern border? Let's talk about Hezbollah first. Do you expect them to make a move, or are they too weak financially and politically to attack Israel right now?
The issue is the perception of strength and power. You know, I served as Deputy Minister of Defense, and I learned that it's not about the real strength you have, about the number of tanks or submarines. It's about the perception. And I think today the perception that the U.S. is weaker, and those people sitting in Beirut, the heads of Hezbollah, they know that we will retaliate, we will attack them, and I think they know it very seriously, so they will think twice before challenging the IDF. And also politically, they know that the people in Lebanon will blame them for the consequences. So I don't know what will happen, and also you have to understand that the people in Hezbollah in Beirut don't decide. They get orders from Tehran. So the radicals in Tehran will decide when the next conflict will be here in the north.
Well, that's the big concern, is it not? What Iran is going to do. And I know your Prime Minister, Naftali Bennett, recently met with President Biden at the White House, and Biden said he will not allow Iran to possess a nuclear weapon on his watch. But how can Israel trust his word on that, given that many of America's allies feel abandoned? They feel let down by the hasty withdrawal from Afghanistan. Can you depend on his word?
We have to trust ourselves. History has taught us that we have to be the ones securing our future and our well-being. And I think we have a reason to worry, because the new administration actually acknowledged that they are willing, they are eager to sign a deal with the administration in Tehran. I don't know why, but now the only reason that we don't have agreement is because the leadership in Tehran are not willing to negotiate with the U.S. I hope it will stay that situation, because the last thing we want is another bad agreement that will allow Iran to become nuclear, allow them to send their proxies weapons and funding. We don't want to see it becoming a reality.
Many Americans believe Israel may be forced to act alone against Iranian nuclear weapons. Prime Minister Bennett suggested that Israel will take steps against the Islamic Republic, a little bit at a time. So how could you stop them without U.S. military backing and support? Don't you need that?
We have the capability to defend ourselves, and if we will have no choice, we will do it ourselves. We did it in the past. I want to remind you, when we destroyed the nuclear reactor in Iraq, the nuclear reactor in Syria. We hope it will not be the case that it will be only Israel against the radicals of Iran. But if nothing will stop them, we will be there to stop them.
Coming up, the Feast of Trumpets and the blowing of the shofar.
It is the most important archaeological site. Nevertheless, it has never been excavated.
An almost impossible task.
Temple Mount was the largest religious compound in the ancient world.
It is the most politicized piece of real estate in the world.
Leads to an improbable find.
There is an ancient road, also 2,000 years old.
That is the building which is referred to in the New Testament.
That is confirming the stories of the Bible.
Where did Jesus walk? There's no question he walked on these steps.
You can see it. There's no way to refute that.
They existed. They walked here. They talked here.
See the evidence left by an ancient witness.
He lived there. He saw it. He knew the details.
It's like the crown of our discoveries.
May cause a rewriting of the history of the Temple Mount.
And discover what was. Written in stone, Secrets of the Temple. Get your copy today for a gift of any dollar amount. Available now.
Celebrate the summer with the Superbook Summer Splash Bonus. Receive 3 of the best water adventures from the Bible when you join the Superbook Club. Get Gizmo Go, Call the Repair Bots, plus 2 copies to share with others, all for your gift of only $25. And as part of the Superbook Summer Splash Bonus, you'll receive 3 additional Superbook episodes featuring the best raging water stories from the Bible. Superbook Club members, free streaming for seasons 1 through 5 is now available.
We're entering a special season of biblical holidays. These traditional Jewish holy days begin with Rosh Hashanah, the traditional New Year, and include Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement. But there's more to this season, and the Bible points the way. CBN Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell tells us why.
Rosh Hashanah literally means head of the year, the new year. But biblically, it's much more than that. In the book of Leviticus, it's called Yom Teruah, the day of the blowing of trumpets, or ram's horn, the judgment day.
The only commandment during Rosh Hashanah is actually to hear the sound of the shofar. Okay. And so everybody gathering in the synagogue to hear the sound of the shofar. It's something that people connect to their soul, to hear the sound of the shofar.
The piercing sound of the shofar is meant to remind the hearers to repent of their sins and to make things right with their brothers and sisters. The rabbis say that reconciliation with God and man confounds the enemy.
A shofar is a musical instrument made from a horn. This is the oldest musical instrument. And the Jewish Orthodox we have a committee to hear the sound of the shofar during New Year, our Judgment Day.
As part of a two-family business, Eli Ribach is a third-generation shofar maker.
The process is grinding, polishing, then we open a mouthpiece. This is quick, but it's a lot of experience and a lot of hand work because each horn is a different size, different thickness, so you have to be experienced to make a good shofar.
The ram's horn is used as the traditional shofar because when Abraham showed his willingness to sacrifice his son Isaac, God provided a ram to be used in his place.
Actually, all type of horns are kosher except of a cow.
That's because the Jewish people don't want to remind God of the time Israel worshipped the golden calf in the wilderness. Besides the distinctive tones of the different horns, there are 3 different blasts sounded. The shofar is blown in synagogues and at the Western Wall each morning for a month before the holiday to give plenty of time for repentance.
You and I both know that we need a lot of reminders in our daily life to repent, to think of the things of God. It's like an alarm clock for the soul.
Ribach says it's not just Jewish people who blow the shofar.
We sell the shofar all over the world. We sell it to Jewish, to Christian, Messianic people, evangelist people.
Rosh Hashanah is the feast of the 7th month, but in Jewish tradition represents the new year.
At the coronation of the kings of Israel, the shofars would blow. They would announce the new king, or they would announce the coming of the king. Oftentimes in the Christian world, shofars are blown throughout the entire year. But in Judaism and in Jewish practice, those shofars are only blown for a very limited time throughout the year, during this time, the month of Elul and Rosh Hashanah.
Boaz Michael, founder of First Fruits of Zion, says that's a foreshadow for those who believe in Yeshua, Jesus.
And they tell us something, they're speaking to us, they're reminding us of something. And one of the things they're reminding us of is the creation of the world, the coming of the King Messiah one day at this time, the coronation of his kingdom here on earth. This is what the shofar is to remind us of, and it speaks to us every day when we hear that sound.
Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Still ahead, letters to God arrive in Jerusalem and are placed in the Western Wall.
Thank you for watching Jerusalem Dateline. We're committed to providing you with unbiased reporting from the Holy Land. Through weekly broadcasts, podcasts, and online media, our vision is to reach millions around the globe with the true story of what's happening in Israel and the Middle East, all from a biblical and prophetic perspective. This is a big vision and is only made possible by the generous support of people like you.
Call us toll-free at 1-800-700-7000 or go to cbn.com/Jerusalem Dateline and make a donation that will help spread the light of truth about Israel throughout the world.
It has the power to influence weight loss, boost your immune system, and improve brain function.
We've seen an explosion of data on the role of the gut microbiome in health.
The free Build a Better Gut booklet reveals the latest information about the gut microbiome. You'll discover how your gut affects the rest of your health.
The gut microbiome has been linked to depression and cancer and heart disease.
Learn how to build a stronger, healthier gut.
The microbiome, if it's in good composition, are really protecting us all the time from more invasive things.
Get the Build a Better Gut booklet, free from the Christian Broadcasting Network. Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to cbn.com/buildabettergut.
You need to make sure that your microbes are working with you, not against you.
And if you order online, you'll get immediate access to the Build a Better Gut series, a digital copy of the booklet, and related bonus material. Build a Better Gut today. Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to cbn.com/buildabettergut for your free copy.
Here,
We're committed to a heritage of rigorous scholarship, dating back over 1,000 years.
And to a faith tradition dating back 1,000 more.
This is how we create a culture of inquiry where no topic is off limits.
And a culture of hope.
Anything's possible!
It's Christian leadership.
And it's changing the world for the better.
It's higher learning.
It's greater knowing.
It's what makes us whole.
It's what makes us Regent.
Spice up your summer with these delicious international recipes. Introducing Operation Blessing's free light and lean recipe book. It's filled with flavors your whole family will enjoy. Plus, you'll learn about Operation Blessing's work, bringing nutritious food, clean water, and medical care to millions in need. Call 1-800-730-BLESS or go to ob.org/summer to get your free light and lean recipe book right now.
If you want to send a letter to God, where do you send it? Jerusalem, of course. Take a look at what happens to those letters and heartfelt prayers when they arrive in the Jewish state. Each year, hundreds of people worldwide address letters to God and send them to the Israel Post.
We're keeping a tradition with the Postal Authority, with letters that people send to God.
As part of an annual tradition, those letters were placed in the cracks of the Western Wall ahead of next week's Rosh Hashanah holiday.
Here by the Western Wall, we know God says that my house will be called a house of prayer for all nations. Here is a place that prayers are raised from everyone.
Western Wall Rabbi Shmuel Rabinovich says they ask God to hear and answer the prayers. Dear God, please end the corona pandemic and make my parents buy me a new iPhone and a JBL speaker, writes Aaron from Germany. Forgive me, my Father, I have been unable to repent. Please care for my late husband's soul and the living on earth, writes Sylvia from Ecuador. Dear God, please bring new friends into my life and tell my family to help me, because most of us do not talk to each other and I have no one to talk to, writes Anna, a single mom from Canada. Israel Post CEO Danny Goldstein says the Postal Authority is happy to help people who can't be here get their prayers to the wall. The post office used to bring bags of letters to the Western Wall. Now that people can send their requests by technology, it's not so much. But still, there was a 30% increase this year over last year, probably due to COVID.
People usually come to pray at the Kotel, but now it's hard for them to get here, so they're sending more letters.
Goldstein says the worldwide pandemic has led many to ask God for good health, healing, and a return to their normal routines. We want to wish all of our Jewish viewers Hag Sameach Shana Tova, a happy holiday and a good new year. That's all for this edition. Thanks for joining us. Remember, you can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. And you can also access CBN content through our CBN News and other CBN apps. And don't forget to sign up for our email blasts so you can continue to receive all of our exciting CBN content. I'm Julie Stahl. We'll see you next time on Jerusalem Dateline.